something interesting is sure to happen. Well, I think you ought to tell me who you are first. Mr. Rabbit, then why did you ask the question?
Goodness, this is quite extraordinary.
Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here?
But today is turning into the most curious adventure I have ever had.
Welcome, fellow travellers, learners and explorers. I'm Georgia Ellis, and thank you for tuning in to the Ellis in Wunderland podcast. Today, I'm joined by Benny Wallington. So Benny is the founder of a smart drinking movement called 101 Tokens. And what he does is he guides thousands of people to help them redefine their relationship with alcohol. And I think that's pretty special. He also believes that intentional conversations can lead to solving the biggest problems we face. And he's actually testing this out with Macquarie University. And we'll probably test it today because we're going to have an intentional conversation, I'm hoping. So let's get curious with Benny. Welcome, Benny.
Thanks for having me, Georgia. Massive pleasure to be here. I'm frothing.
Good. I'm glad you're frothing. So am I. And just before we started recording, I said you're one of my favorite people on the planet. So I'm really, really excited to have you here because you've got so many things that you're doing, so much experience that you've had, and you've got your fingers in quite a number of pies. So I don't know where we're going to go with this conversation today, but let's start with a question a similar question that I ask most of my listeners. So I want you to imagine that I'm 7-year-old Alice from Alice in Wonderland, and I'm just skipping my way through Wonderland, and I bump into you, and I ask you a very serious question, Benny. I say, Benny, what is it that excites you the most about the world we live in? How would you answer that to a 7-year-old girl?
Well, what excites me the most is the fact, which is actually one of the scariest things and one of the most beautiful things that's happening right at the moment. And the scary part of it is that some people say we're in the middle of the sixth extinction, global extinction. And that's scary because, hey, the word extinction triggers us. There's an organization called Extinction Rebellion, and they're doing some crazy stuff all around the world. And it triggers us to action. And so what I would say is that while we're in this space of, some people are freaking out, other people are denying that it's even existing, the beautiful thing that's coming out of it is that as a human race, we're coming together collaboratively and for the purpose of humanity. And I guess to little Alice, I'd ask, have you seen Avatar? Because I just watched Avatar again, and it's a beautiful narrative. It's just, people call it Pocahontas in space, but I think it's about this collaboration. There's a part in the movie where they go to all four corners and they get the Na'vis from all the different corners to in that instance is to save their planet. And they've got, obviously they're battling the humans, but there's something beautiful about everyone getting together and for the cause. And I think it's going to be the biggest coming together of the human race has ever seen. And it's phenomenal, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, wonderful. Now, I don't know if Alice has seen Avatar, but I certainly have. It's up there with one of my favorite movies. And it's actually a really good movie to sit down and watch every now and then and see, because there's so many different narratives running through that. It's a really beautiful movie. Is it James Cameron? James Cameron's done a beautiful job with that. Absolutely amazing. So talk to us a little bit. I don't know where to start with you, but I'm going to start with one of the things that you're doing really successfully, and that's 101 Tokens. So can you share with us a little bit about 101 Tokens, what it is, how it came about, and what's your plan and your purpose for it?
Yeah, so I always have a little laugh to myself when I'm on a entrepreneurs panel or something like that, or people are talking about their business and they're like, why did you start your business? And people have their reasons, see gaps in markets and stuff like that, and we're inspired to action. And I literally tell people I was a pisshead in London, because that's where my business started, really. And it wasn't meant to be a business. I was laying on a couch in London on the 3rd of January, 2016, and drinking a beer off my stomach like Homer Simpson. And my flatmate said, Benny, let's go to the pub. It's kind of the 3rd day in a row I was meant to be going to the pub. Well, I wasn't meant to, I just was going to the pub. And as I went to take my final sip and go to the pub, I spilt it down into the crevice, or the Heathrow injection, as we call it. And I went, nah, I'm turning 30. This isn't how my life is going to roll out. And that was kind of my little moment, my epiphany moment, where I needed to do something about it. I didn't have a job at the time. The job which I thought I was going to do forever, we got sued by one of the founders, and that collapsed. And so I was jobless, and I'd committed to creating this new project with the Premier League soccer club in England and a charity there. And I wasn't doing it. I wasn't pulling my finger out. I had all these sponsors. I had all these people relying on me. And here I was drinking on a couch like Homer Simpson, wallowing away my time. And so, yeah, I looked on the internet. I was like, well, where can I didn't go to the pub. I sent my friend off to the pub, and I looked on the internet, where can I find a supportive group of people, for people who want to change their drinking habits, but don't want to give it up. Because I'm kind of like, I really like drinking, and I still do. And I didn't want to go to Alcoholics Anonymous, although some people would probably have said at that point I could have used that. And I couldn't find anything good. I couldn't find a community, and that's what I really wanted. So I decided that I would just write my own rules. And like anyone does, you need accountability. We're well versed in needing accountability to succeed. And I need to be accountable to myself first and foremost. So I wrote out these rules, 101 tokens. I was drinking 5+ nights a week at that point. And I wanted to get my drinking down to under twice a week. So that would have been 104 tokens. But 104 doesn't sound as catchy. I've got an advertising background, so it made a lot of sense to do 101. So yeah, created 101 tokens. I said, I'm allowed to drink twice a week. every time I drink alcohol, the next day, I'm going to say whether it's worth it or not on my 2-pound Winnie the Pooh calendar. And I'm going to draw, that's going to allow me to draw out the patterns in my drinking, knock out the bad patterns, and pump up the good ones, and try and become a smart drinker. And so I went on that journey for a year of just, I didn't have a community, but people, because I was blogging once a month, people were like listening to my stories and giving me feedback, and really kind of following how I was progressing, to the point where at the end of the year, when I'd saved $8,000, I'd put on 6 kilos of muscle and got rid of the Heathrow injection. I'd got control over my drinking, and it stuck to that goal. And I launched that business, and it was a success. The pilot went really well, and everyone was stoked. So, you know, I ticked off a lot of the things that most people are trying to achieve in life in one way or another: health, money, travel, and businesses. And so, yeah, I had 90 friends and family join me the year after, and we didn't do any tech. It still wasn't a business. It was literally a closed Facebook group, and me just guiding people on kind of what I'd learned that year, and then listening to them for that whole year. It was like, well, what do you guys need? What do you guys want? And inadvertently, I'd become an alcohol coach, which I hadn't realized myself yet. And by the end of that year, we had 35 out of the 90 finish, which is pretty good for a New Year's resolution. It smashes the 4 to 6% that they say of people who finish the New Year's resolution. And I'd ask them, what do they want out of this? And they said, I would like an app. And I'd worked in tech before, so kind of understood how to prototype an app. So I prototyped an app. I worked with a Google developer who kindly donated some time for me. We simplified it, we released it, and then all of a sudden the Australian media thought I was an app developer. I basically went out, because I'm not bad at PR as well in my previous life, and was in advertising and PR for charities and stuff like that. So I know how to write a story and get attention. And so, yeah, I was like, whoa, you guys need to talk to me about this, because, you know, I've got, people who've changed their lives, people who've potentially come back from the edge of cliffs because of this now, people who've started businesses. It wasn't just me. It was these other people are doing this as well. There's some proof here. And anyway, I got the press, and it was really cool, but all they wanted to do was talk about the app. And when I tried to talk about the community. They're like, oh, we don't really want, well, they cut that out. And I was like, that's the fucking most important thing. This is like, it's the people, not the bloody app. So that kind of pissed me off. But at the same time, it gave us global exposure. We had downloads in 76 different countries. And yeah, it was pretty crazy there for a moment. But then I realized that I wasn't able to respond to everyone via email, whereas it was only 90 people the year before. It's doable. Now it was, there was thousands on my email list, and I was putting out content, but I realized that I needed to probably create something that was a little bit more robust. So we went to work again and built an online education platform, which has now been developed into what we call the Smart Drinker Bootcamp. And that aligns to private coaching. So now I privately coach entrepreneurs mainly and C-level executives in different countries as well, here in Australia and North America and in the UK. And I've just finished up my first program running with a business, a multinational business out of Sydney. So that's awesome. And I've kind of called it in. I haven't really tried to get press, except for when I went to Ireland, when I was trying to do this crazy thing where I wanted Ireland to become the first 101 tokens country. And that might still happen, but who knows? But yeah, I haven't been trying to call in press, and I just sort of mentioned it to someone, and I've got an interview with news.com tomorrow, and I had an interview with Business News Australia. And so I'm like, this alcohol, I've been pushing back on it for a long time, but this identity, or part of my identity as an alcohol coach, is actually a really ripping story to tell, because now I can really tell the stories of other people, because, while I've become a smart drinker, it's the stories around one of my clients who's got type 1 diabetes and has had this epic health change, entrepreneurs in the States who are launching their products and becoming just happier, healthier humans and scaling businesses. That's interesting to the entrepreneurial media. So that's kind of that's my rabbit hole, which I didn't intend to ever become a coach. I actually hated it, the terminology, to now I'm like, just embrace it and let it flow. And that's part of a lot of the stuff you've taught me. So I'm very grateful for that. Is, we don't have to pigeonhole ourselves. We can be expansive. We can put on different hats depending on what we're doing. But as long as we're staying true to our values and where we want to head, then let it unfold. And yeah, beautiful.
And I love that. And I'm with you around that, this misconception around being called a coach, for whatever reason. And I think what you're doing is more of I'm a guide on the side, right? So I'm going to guide you and help you along the way, because there are, some people have this, well, especially in Australia, this misconception around coaching, although it is changing slightly. There's a couple of things that I want to sort of dive down. I'll start with smart drinking. So define smart drinking. You've sort of alluded to it, but what does that mean to our listeners?
Yeah. So one of my clients actually said this to me. He goes, I don't need AA. I'm just an AD. And I was like, what are you talking about? He said, well, I don't need Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm just an Aussie drinker. And so to unpack that, I think we're in this, and to make it clear, I don't deal with people who have got clinical addiction. So if I get on a phone call with someone and I sense that they need more serious support, like my program is vetted by a psychologist, I will pass them on to medical practitioners with those accreditations. And that's kind of the process. But there's this huge gap of Aussie drinkers, right? And I say that they're stuck, a lot of them are stuck in this cycle, which is drink, drunk, regret, suppress. And so they'll go like, they'll drink on the weekends, they'll get drunk, then they'll regret what they did. And then rather than dealing with it, they'll suppress it. And they'll say things like, oh, I'm never drinking again, right? And then come Wednesday, Thursday, back on the cans, like I had a tough day at work, family life is tough, money worries, all the same shit that we're all dealing with at some point. They're back on it again. And before you know it, they're back in that same cycle. And so what our program's trying to do is identify how to take them out of that cycle. And to become a smart drinker, I say that it's really about to drink, respect, reflect, success. So it's when you drink, you have to have respect for yourself. You have to have respect for the alcohol, turn it into a bit of a ritual. And then you need to reflect. And one of our co-founders at Kokoro, Sarah, she talks about self-reflection as a muscle. So self-reflect, that's basically the crux of 101 tokens, is like every time you drink, the next day you say, was it worth it or not? Yeah. And then you use that self-reflection, and then that's how you get success, because you incrementally improve. So a smart drinker isn't just flick the switch and you become a smart drinker. It's about them going on their own journey, identifying where they want to get to, and then using the systems that we've set up, which is really like that self-reflection. You can't do it without it, to incrementally improve and become a smart drinker. Yeah.
So it's really becoming conscious of your actions and what the results are of that. Because a lot of us don't actually stop and do that. We just get into the habit and the habit of drinking, and it becomes part of who we are. We start identifying with it. Like, I'm an AD, an Aussie drinker. I'm not really, but I'm just saying that person, he identified as an Aussie drinker. So it's a really big thing to start changing that deep subconscious belief and what you're linked to as being a drinker. And what does that do with your social circles? Because now they know you as an Aussie drinker. So now you're going to start to undo that. And that conscious reflection, that's one of the most powerful things we do. And we actually have, it's actually our superpower. It's called metacognition. It's our ability to think something and then notice our thoughts and change them in a moment. So reflecting and having an app to help you do that post a drinking session is really powerful. So I want to also talk about, now you've got alcohol. So alcohol is pretty much the crux of it, but I believe there's way more vices than alcohol. Now we're going to say invented the term vice optimization. So talk to us a little bit about what that entails, and what are some other vices that we could use the similar sort of reflection process with.
Totally. Every single thing in the world you can use that reflection process with. But to talk about in particular vice optimization, that's kind of like, I'm a massive believer in changing up language, trying to redefine language, allowing people to understand how to operate by changing their language. Change your language, change reality. So the vice optimization is really about having that stepping back, or metacognition, about thinking about how I'm thinking about what's my relationship to this vice. Let's say one of my big vices, like coffee, right? How am I, when I drink too much coffee, that sends me into not a good place. I'm not showing up. I'm anxious. I can't perform my best. And so I know that, so if I'm going to apply vice optimization to coffee, it's like, I still like to fast. So how can I drink a coffee in the morning and not break my fast? So do the research on that. And then how can I continue to analyze my coffee drinking? Or whoops, if I drink past 12 o'clock, that affects my sleep, which then affects my next day. And so you need to have the self-reflection built in for any vice, to understand basically how you can improve, incremental improvement. But then in terms of vice optimization, I've applied the 101 tokens methodology to my meat consumption, which was a mix of understanding how my body felt. And we've discussed this when we in talking about intuitive eating, how my body felt, and then also for the environment. Eating 3 meat meals a day, your body definitely doesn't need to do that. And I was pretty much doing that. So applying that without making myself sick, and doing it progressively. Clothing, applied the same things to clothing. What do I actually need? Am I actually looking into where my clothing comes from? Is another part of being conscious. And that goes across the board. Pornography is one that I've so with vice optimization, the whole point is to figure out how something serves you.
Yeah.
So does alcohol serve me? Some of my clients, it doesn't anymore, and they don't drink anymore. Cool. With pornography and looking at sex, pornography is like, that doesn't serve me anymore. I actually can't figure out how that possibly makes my life any better. I've got a lovely partner. And so that was a process of me being aware of it, and then going, well, maybe I can try cold turkey. Didn't work the first time a couple of years ago. And this time I've just been able to rewire my brain to go, actually, I can't even write down on a piece of paper what the benefits for this are for me. And so, yeah, it's basically vice optimization is a process of figuring out how that particular vice can serve you best.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I love that because there's a lot of things that we put in the naughty basket, isn't there? Like chocolate, alcohol, fatty foods, all these sort of things, pornography, coffee. We put them in the naughty basket, but actually, if we really think about life, everything has good and bad in it. And it comes down to finding the good in it and utilizing it for that. Now, if you have too much of a good thing, obviously it doesn't work for you, but then finding that sweet spot. And I think everyone's going to have their own sweet spot of what is actually optimizing that particular vice. So there's so many things. So vices, I mean, in the digital age we live in at the moment, even our phones, lovely things called devices, actually have the term vice in them. I mean, these are another thing that, yes, they serve us because they're direct access to information, they're direct access to people, but they're also something that can take us away from people as well. So being able to work through those things that don't serve us. I want to also, there's a couple of things that I think entwine with what you've been saying, and you mentioned this earlier, and especially around alcohol, was rituals. And the reason my ears pricked up was did a bit of study a couple of years ago around, I always call them the wrong thing. I always call them centurions, but it's centennians, the people that live to over 100 in the blue zones. Or
centurions? I thought it would be centurions.
I used to call them the wrong thing, like the army centurions, but they're not.
Centenarians.
Centenarians, that's it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I was doing a bit of, I'm studying them, and I can't even pronounce them, and studying some of the work in those blue zones. And one of the things is a lot of them live longer because they ritualize their life. So yes, they're thinking, well, you live to over 100 and you drink. Yeah, but I drink one drink at night. At the end of the day, it's a glass of wine, or it's a brandy, or it's a something, but there's a ritual about it. And it's got a purpose. Whereas when we're drinking to get drunk, I don't know if that's the right purpose, but it's not a ritual anymore. It's actually, let's just go and get smashed and lose ourselves, where this is a completely different way of looking at those things. So even eating is a ritual. It's a family getting together, and you'll find that everything that we have in the modern world that are now become our vices, these people that are living long, healthy, wonderful lives have actually ritualized it. What are your thoughts on rituals? Because I know you've done a bit of work in that space as well.
I love rituals, and unfortunately it feels like we don't have that many. Well, at
not
least
in Australia, we don't.
Yeah, I actually, you know what? I've been kind of wrestling with this thought a little bit in relation to Indigenous Australians. I was horrified when I got to university and I took a modern history course, and I got to learn about what actually happened when colonization occurred. And I was like, oh my God, like, I can't believe they taught us what they taught us in high school. They glossed over it. I don't know. I was saying to my partner the other day, was that just to protect us? But I look at New Zealand and I'm like, how fucking cool is it when you see, the haka going on and they're all doing it. And I'm like, the Aboriginal culture is beautiful and it's fucking amazing. And there's so much good stuff for us to learn. And I kind of feel like, I actually feel a little bit like hollow that I don't have that much, like an identity like that. I'm tied up in the UK. That's where my descendants are from. They're all from somewhere around the UK. And they don't really have many rituals either. Like, what the
Thursday night drinking.
British colony. Yeah. What did you do, British colony, except for, like calling them out here a bit, but where are our rituals? All we did was fucking ruin other people's, to be honest. That's a bit of a pessimistic view, but I feel like, wow, like what an opportunity now that we have because the people I know who are Indigenous Australians are so beautiful and welcoming for other people to join in. It's just that, obviously our government's not that great at trying to get that into the curriculum. How can we be more progressive? How can we do that? Because I'd love if I have kids, for them to have an opportunity to be more involved in that and to feel more of a sense of identity to this piece of land that we live on and that we're so fortunate to have. We need more rituals. And I think when it comes to drinking in particular, I said my ritual with drinking was that, it was my rite of passage as drinking was to do it rebelliously because I wasn't allowed to drink at home. It was to drink as much as I could to prove that I could do it, which I clearly couldn't when I was younger. And losing my virginity at schoolies, that was like a ritual. I was like, that's fucking terrible actually. But hey, it happened and it was, it is what it is. But it's like, well, cool. That gives us a point to sort of stand back and go, well, what was kind of wrong with that picture? And how can we shift that? And it's not to say, like, I don't want kids to not be able to go to schoolies. It's fucking fun, right? It was a good time.
Coming of age in Australia almost, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. But that's not a coming of age. That's going and getting blacked out and stuff. But what can we do with our systems that we've currently got to invite? There's some people doing some fantastic work in this as well around Australia. But yeah, what can we do? So maybe, hey, go to schoolies, but maybe there's a better way to transition into work life. Because I got back from schoolies and I went to uni, which was just an extended party for me. And then I went into advertising, which was an extended party from uni. When I think about it, so I learn a lot.
Your life, you've just had one big party.
Well, yeah, definitely, that was a huge part of my identity. And I still love to party. I just party in a bit of a different way now.
Yeah. So I think the rituals are really beautiful. I have connections with people that I've worked with that have come from like the Indian culture, African cultures, and they have these beautiful rituals that they bring people together. They celebrate life. They celebrate different things. They celebrate giving, and they're just beautiful and they're colourful. And it's funny enough, there's not a lot of drinking involved in these rituals that they have in these celebrations. But also, I think there's a place for people to ritualize some of their own vices. So you and I have a friend, Takako, and she ritualizes her morning tea. Mm-hmm. So she mindfully drinks her tea. So she has her tea and it becomes a ritual of waiting for the tea to seep, and then she'll pour it and then she'll sit there and she'll smell it. Then she'll drink it very slowly and just, really acknowledge what she's doing. So that is in itself is a ritual. So if we look at people's vices like coffee, alcohol, food, even devices, I think there's probably a way that people could look at creating a ritual around it, that I do it at a certain time. I make sure I'm in the right frame of mind and really notice what I'm doing. I'm very mindful when I'm in that moment. I think that can make a big difference. It also becomes more of that conscious awareness of what you're doing, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I think so what I talk about which is something that I guess we've been unpacking as well with Kokoro and the chats we've had around on-ramping to things and off-ramping. So setting up for a ritual for drinking is like, what have I done to allow myself to put my body and mind in the right position? Like, am I drinking from a place of enjoyment and social connection, or am I doing it, like you said before, to, get out of my head? And so, identifying those things and then working out, like, is that during the on-ramping process, maybe I'm not on-ramping to going out drinking. Maybe I get to that point and I go, actually, well, I'm on-ramping to go to the gym because that's where I need the release, or go for a run, or I'm just going to listen to a podcast or play some music or do something.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to identify. Unfortunately, at the moment, we're too quick to go to the booze. We're too quick to go to the coffee. And we do it subconsciously. And so, that's really what we need. Like, we need all Australians and everyone everywhere to take more pause moments.
Yeah, absolutely. Level up in your thinking and pause a little bit before and find out and really get clear on your intentions. So I recently, just on that, I recently went to a dear friend's mother's funeral, and they had the wake afterwards in a pub. They have an Irish background, so drinking is very much in their culture. And I haven't really been a big drinker. Well, I've had times in my life where I have, but I actually claim myself as a non-drinker, because what I do is maybe once or twice a year, I might have a drink, but I've ritualized it to the point as if I'm going to have a drink, it's going to be the best quality alcohol, and I'm going to have one.
Beautiful.
So we went to the wake, everyone's getting the cheap beers on the tab, and I just walk up to the bar and I get the top shelf gin with tonic with a beautiful piece of lime in it, and I sip on it for 3 hours. So it was becoming my ritual. I was there still participating, but I wanted to also honor the person because she was a big drinker. But I thought, yes, I'm going to do this, but it becomes a ritual. And I think we can all do that mindfully. I'm not saying my way is the best way, but you can start to really consider why you're doing the things you're doing, whether it be your social media, whether it be the way you're eating, whether it be pornography, whether it be relationships or anything. I think those intentions play a really big part.
Yeah, I think intention's great. And I've got this might be good for your listeners. And I did it a little while ago, talking about phones. There's, on a side note, there's rehab for phones. And that's been for kids in an Asian country. I can't remember which one. That was like 5 or 6 years ago. Parents were sending their kids to rehab for technology addiction. But anyway, to think about your phone and your social media apps, write them all in one column. Write down your intention for using that app. And then in the next column, am I meeting that intention for using that app? And then if it's a no, then what can I do to meet that intention? And then you basically got yourself a little mind map, and you can incrementally, if you want to, you can totally go for a gnarly triage and deleting of apps and things like that, because it might actually just wake you up. But yeah, one at a time, just have a look at it and go, what am I doing with that app? Is it meeting my intention? And if it's not, how can I shift it? And to give you a quick example, I had WhatsApp, the group messaging app, and I said what was my intention. It was to connect with my friends so I can stay up to date on what's going on. And I went, is that happening? And I was like, well, no, I'm basically just sending memes and like not really paying attention anymore. And that's not connecting to me. Connecting is, a Zoom call is a connection to me, or a phone call, right through to seeing them face to face. And it's like, that's not what I'm doing here. So my decision was to write a nice message to all my friends and just say, hey guys, I was on like 10 groups, by the way, from UK to Australia. And I was like, hey guys, I love connecting with you guys, but I'd really like to make sure that when we connect, it's face to face. Or if you want, let me know and let's get on a Zoom call and we can chat. And not many of my friends wrote to me and asked for a Zoom call. So that's pretty interesting right there, right? But having said that, when I went to London a few months back, they were all there and I got to have this epic time with my buds. And I don't need to know exactly what they're doing all the time, because they've all got kids and wives and, jobs and stuff. And that was so beautiful to do that face to face, few beers like the old days. And it's decluttered my brain, the amount of like brain power that you don't realize you're using. Cause I'm the kind of person who would like spend half an hour trying to find the perfect meme to write back. And so that in itself, go through and just have a little think about it. And another quick one on Instagram, I think we're all following way too many people. And we should think about the people that we're following as mentors. Sure, you can have your funny things that you follow that are just like, a bit of a release. But if you're really serious about leveling up yourself, identify 3 mentors that you're following and delete the rest for now. And you might come back to them later, but, study hard on those people and they might actually become mentors that you work with. I
love that advice, because what happens is, and this came from one of my mentors actually a long time ago, I remember, and it's Bob Proctor, and I was sitting in a room with him with a couple of other people, and someone said to him, Why would I come and, you know, work with you? Why would I have you as my coach, as my mentor, when, let's say, I'll just put some random person, Joe Blow is doing exactly what you're doing, and I can get, you know, time with them cheaper or whatever it might be. And Bob's response was, you're going to get amazing information from anyone, but what happens is if you follow more people, you'll end up being confused. So he says, just pick one person and follow them until you've got all you need out of them, then find somebody else. So it was really quite empowering to think that, yeah, we sit there and we'll be following this person over here, this person over here. Sometimes their information will be similar, but sometimes it'll be conflicting, and then you get confusion and you don't know what to do, and you just end up not doing anything. So I love that advice to limiting yourself on social media to following people that are going to add value, inspire you, and be your mentors, and just ditch the others for now. Yeah, and I think
Yes.
that's just beautiful, because it's actually been the way that I've worked. I actually have 2 or 3 people I follow on Instagram that are my mentors, and I have other people that I'm following as well, just for because they take really beautiful photos, and I like having that on my feed. So yeah, really limiting that takes away the confusion. And it might be, you might just go, I'm going to follow this person for 3 months, see what they're like, might stay on, might not. But you, as the holder of the device, have the ability to follow and unfollow people.
Exactly. You hold the power.
Yeah.
And here's another one, just a quick one as well, which I had in the shower the other day. In hot showers trigger my brain. Like my brain just goes gnarly in hot showers. So I have to be careful about, because then I'll just get stuck there. Yeah, don't have too many hot showers. But
you write notes in the steam on the glass?
just funny ones to my partner. I'm not really, yeah. But I was thinking about, because I run a workshop called How to Have a Beer with Your Heroes, which is now How to Work with Your Heroes. It's kind of evolved. And I was thinking about this question, which is like, well, who, if you could pick one person in the world, doesn't matter who it is, they have to be alive. And next week you were having a 15-minute conversation with them next week. You've got them all to yourself. What would that conversation look like? Yeah. And what would you do to prepare? And so, and then let them work on that. It's a workshop. So yeah, let them sort of work on it, give them 5 or 10 minutes. And then tell them, and I don't know if this is going to work yet, maybe try it, listeners. You now have a roadmap to approach that person. Because if you would then spend that next week researching them, or like reading up on them, doing all this stuff, if you really want to meet that person, you need to give yourself a good reason to meet them, and you need to find out where there's a mutually beneficial conversation. And it might be just that, you know, you really admire them, but I feel like not enough people, they aspire to speak to people and they aspire to find mentors and be in the ecosystems of these people they look up to, but they don't do the work.
Yeah,
And
and they don't,
yeah.
or they get in front of them for whatever means, and they just turn into a blubbering mess.
Mm-hmm.
And don't know, so they put these people up on a pedestal as well. We've got to remember that these people are humans just like us.
I love when you say that. I always remember that. You've said that multiple times to me and the rest of the guys. Just like, we shouldn't put, everyone's just a human. Everyone's just a human.
Yeah.
They're all just getting along.
They're just doing things differently. They've applied themselves differently. They've got different dreams and aspirations that got them to where they are. So they're just, if you take it all away, they breathe like we do. They have a heart like we do. You know, inside pretty much the same. They've just taken different actions and potentially got different belief systems, but they're still just a human, and they're going to die just like we are. And they have fears, worries, and doubts just like we do. And we forget that. We think that everyone's, because they've made it, they're superhuman. But then when you really get up close and personal to people, you realize that they still have fears, they still have doubts, they still have inner critics, but they have developed tools to move through that, to overcome it. Or to walk around it, whatever that might be. So some really cool advice there, because I know a lot of people have these people they look up to, let's call them heroes, gurus, whatever it might be. But, you know, preparing yourself to actually meet them's a whole different story. And I've had people, not that I'm anyone's hero, but actually yesterday I got an email from someone who had been following me and been I think she'd looked at my business page and all these different things, and she emailed me because she wants to get into something similar to what I do. I've never met this person before, but she had done pretty much what you recommend. She'd sit down there and she'd done it. So, and she gave me a phone number, and I picked up the phone and rang her. So you really just never know, right? And I actually applaud people who have the courage to do that. So good stuff. So you've got a lot of projects going on. Talk to us a little bit more about what you're doing with Macquarie University. So, and how did this come about? Because I think this is a really nice segue into what we're doing now as well.
Yeah. So how did it come about? I guess my journey into flow is where it came about. So how we've connected as well. I went to a conference in Tasmania called New Kind. So change makers, activists, future thinkers, Indigenous studies, all this kind of rad stuff. No drugs, no alcohol, 5 days on a farm. It's now held at the Falls Festival site in Marion Bay. It's super beautiful. And when I left this conference, I had this resonating afterglow, as we call it, after flow. And I couldn't really understand what it was. And at the same time, I was reading Stealing Fire by Jamie Wheal and Stephen Kotler. And they talked about why Google sends their top executives to Burning Man. And it's not so they can go get on a 5-day bender. It's so when they come back, they are at this resonating extended flow state, peak performance level. And I was feeling that. And it wasn't just the fact that I was sitting there being able to write 10% better than I usually would. It was that, old connections were coming back into my life. It was people were, reaching out to me. It was like the universe was coming together to help me get to where I needed to. And I was like, wow, this moment is what really interests me. So this group flow anywhere from just a conversation with someone through to a whole festival full of people. And so I was fascinated by this, and I ended up going and doing a talk on vice optimization on an island in Croatia. And Jamie Wheal was there. So I got to talk to him about basically what I was calling like a frothing conversation. So like a froth state or a flow state in a conversation. And then what happens after that is like, can we use that energy, that feel good feeling to solve the biggest problems of the world, potentially, or at least solve the problems just in our personal life, business life, whatever. And so can we create intentional conversations or intentional moments that allow us to access this space? And so that's kind of led me toward, riffing on my own podcast and using, in terms of my like morning's routine, conversations as flow triggers into me being able to show up my best and solve big problems. And so with Macquarie University, I have 3 radical students from their PACE program. Any businesses out there, definitely check it out if they want some interns to assist. They're really, really high quality. And basically we're trying to get 40 podcasters. So I think we've got 30 something at the moment. And we're releasing my first real official experiment, because I have never done anything in the space of, with controls and, sham tasks and all this kind of lingo. And
Benny's turning into the crazy scientist.
Yeah, exactly. I've just kind of been like that. No, I know it works. So let's just test it. And, let's just get everyone to do what I do. And then we'll just prove that it works. It's like, no. That's not how science works, mate, unfortunately. It's a little bit slower and it's a little bit, I'm like, but what about the people who might not get the fun protocol? Like, they'll be pissed. Like, no, they're doing a science experiment. Everyone understands. I'm like, okay, let's do it. So having those guys, and then one of our colleagues, Rob Gronbeck, on the project as well, has been phenomenal. So we're basically, the hypothesis is can intentional conversations using podcasters as an example solve the biggest problems in the world. So I'd really love to measure afterflow from great conversations.
Yeah, awesome. And it's beautiful because if you think about it, not just from podcasting. I do know I feel amazing after my podcast interviews. Every single time I've got this afterglow that lasts for quite some time. But if we all, and even our listeners, if you all think to a time when you've had a ripper, an amazing conversation with someone, how you felt, like you really feel empowered, you feel like you can take on the world. So how can you, as you're saying, harness that state, that afterglow, and put it towards, you know, creating amazing things in your own life, in the community, in the world that we live in, so you can actually harness the power of conversation. And we're not talking about conversations that are, you know, we're sitting there gossiping about people. Like, these are really great, amazing conversations that take you to another level intellectually, and you get a heart space, you're connected with heart and mind. And then it just really does trigger something. So I already think I know the answer to your hypotheses. I think I agree with you 100% because I've seen it with what I've been doing. I've felt it as well. So yeah, being able to then harness it. The next step would be to track what people are creating post an intentional conversation. So I'd love to hear. So if any listeners have intentional, amazing conversations and you've gone off and created something amazing after listening to Benny and I chat, let us know. I think that'd be awesome. Absolutely.
Yeah,
So talk to us about what are you working on now, besides you've got the 101 tokens, you've also got the work you're doing with Macquarie University. Is there anything else that you're working on that would be of interest to our listeners or that they might want to get involved in?
Yeah, I've got a project coming. Well, it's kind of out. We've got our first client, but yeah, it's called Reunion. So earlier in the year, I went to an activist rally, Bob Brown for the Greens, and it was a Stop Adani rally. And for a while, and I'd spoken to you guys about this as well, it's kind of like, I feel like I need to go and be an activist, like on the front line. I've been an activist behind the computer for many years. And I went to the rally with my really good friends, and just didn't feel it. It wasn't my vibe. I don't like standing in amongst people chanting and marching, which there's a place for it. There's a guarantee that we need this. We need these actions to make noise. But I didn't feel like that was my calling. I can have more impact behind the computer, actually. Maybe one day I will get on the front line. But at this point in time, this is where I can have more impact. And so, yeah, a few friends and I created this campaign called Vote for the Planet. We basically wanted to take the politicians out of the election. And we created how to vote cards for every single electorate, 151 electorates around Australia. Basically, under the guise that what we want to do is vote for the planet. We don't really give a shit about the politicians, but who are those politicians and those parties that are the ones who are going to do the work that we need to do? So basically just rank them from top to bottom. And we used an algorithm based on a guy a lot smarter than me in terms of these technologies. He basically used Sportsbet or one of the betting companies to align to the best shot that we possibly had of getting a government in that was going to look after the planet. Unfortunately, we didn't win, right? But we made climate the #1 search topic ever in Australian history, and which was crazy because normally the media has a stranglehold on everything. And so the #1 topics are immigration and, scaremongering tactics, which is we don't need to go into. But anyway, so yeah, people thinking about climate, it's pretty rad. And so off the back of that, we've created a company called Reunion. We're not even going to call it a company. We're going to call it a reunion. We're redefining it. And so, and what I was talking to you about off air is that we're just piecing together how it looks. And in my head, it's something around how do we get activists who are on the other end to play with smart business folk who've built companies and businesses, and how do we create like positive impact activism that where everyone can join in and where it would definitely plug in flow. Like flow for activism is something I've chatted to you about before as well. And how can we all play under the one space, but in a way that it's cohesive and in a way that we can share knowledge and in a way that we can do everything for the planet. Yeah. And more for humanity. How can we come together and connect on a micro level and connect on a macro level. So in terms of how people can join in that, you can check out reunion.earth, but yeah, there'll be more to come later in the
It sounds
year.
exciting. It sounds exciting because you're bringing together, I guess, a collaborative of what's best about humanity. You've got smart business people, you've got people who are really passionate and caring about, you know, the planet in this instance. So, yeah, an awesome opportunity for anyone that wants to get involved or just is curious about. And that's another thing, you know, get curious and check it out and see what Benny and his team are up to. So, Benny, as we start to finish up, is there from all, because you've got an amazing journey. You've worked in corporate. You've, you know, found yourself on on a couch in Heathrow spilling beer all over your belly, to starting an app, and it becomes a movement for helping people redefine their vices and actually turn them into, find the gold within them. So far from what you've covered in your life to date, is there any sort of words of, you know, advice or any greatest lessons that you'd like to share with our listeners, something that they could take away and potentially consider and get curious about for themselves?
Yes. So probably two parts. One part is find the people that you want to grow with. That's crucial. And you're going to lose friends and family members along the way because they're not going to get it. And you're going to skip ahead. You're going to, if you're dedicated to growth, whatever that looks like for you, it's going to happen. And I think that's been really tough for me to realize, is that, and you have to let go of your old self, which is where you lose a lot of your friends and family, and you got to let go of some of your old identity. And I've done that. I've shed my skin many times. It was funny. I was speaking to a coach the other day, and she said, her friend just said, "I don't even know you anymore." And she goes, "I'm not the same person I was last week. No wonder I'm still coming to terms with this new person. So no wonder it's tough for you, but you have to accept that I'm changing." And I think we all need to change. We all need to grow. So yeah, find the people that you're going to grow with. And also there's a really good, framework that I use a lot, and it doesn't matter what it is, but you can think of people in terms of, and this is really important for moving forward as a human race, think of people as ones, twos, threes, or fours. So if we take the environmental movement, we've got people who are ones, and they do everything like crazily to make sure that their environmental footprint is zero, or they're being regenerative, which is awesome. They're great, but they're really hard and like tangible for me to follow that, because and hopefully one day you could get there. But what we need is twos. So the twos are the people who are doing the thing, but they're also very aware that, you know, we live in systems, and we need to guide people, and we need to allow them to step up to become twos, because I think twos is where the real work can be done. And then we've got threes, and they're kind of the people who are like, "Oh, I'd really like to do something about the environment, but I'm not really sure. I just need guidance. I need some help." So you'll notice that depending on what your movement is, you'll notice these people. And if you're a two, you can help those threes move up into that two space. And then you got fours. So in the environmental movement, we probably call them rednecks, climate deniers. Fuck them. And that sounds a bit harsh, but there's a method to the madness. So if you're a two, or if you're a three, look out for the twos to help you get to where you want to get to. If you're a two, help the threes, because if you could swing, 10 threes to twos in the amount of energy that it took you to get 1 4 to a 3, maybe. And we're in the time when we've just got to go. We've got to go, and we've got to go hard. So if you're a two, help the threes get up to twos. Forget about the fours. The hope is that eventually the fours will be such a minority. They'll be like, "Hey, wait for me, guys," and they'll come up. But that's kind of been my true north, and I always have to revert back to that, especially in the world of social media, where you get people hammering you. And I'm like, well, what is my time worth to try and get you to change your mind when you're so far in the court that I don't want to? You're not in the arena. Like Brene Brown says, if you're not in the arena, don't even talk to me. Step into the arena and let's play.
Yeah,
that's right.
You've got so much energy. Just, you don't want to expend it on people that just aren't even willing to listen. So yeah, I absolutely love that advice, and I love that analogy of was it it was four levels.
4s, 1, 2s, and 3s and 4s.
One, two,
I should come up with a better way to explain that. It's
So
not
you can
my.
actually utilize that in any area of your life.
Yep.
So you did a really nice, beautiful overlay with the environment. So, you know, you could use that for your own personal journey of growth. There's going to be people that are at level 4 who just don't give a shit. They don't care. They don't believe in growth. It is what it is. I'm conforming to the outside world and that's it. Then you have people that are just noticing little bits of shifts and they're going, oh, I need to change. I want to change something, but I'm not quite sure what. So they're at their level 2s. Then you've got the 3s, the people who have started to, they're getting some results. They understand, you know, life's hard and sometimes we go back to our old ways and sometimes we take a step forward, but they're actually improving and moving along. And so those people are the ones that probably become coaches and so forth and can help the 2s get up to a 3. And then you've got your...
Sorry, you just got, just so you got that's all right. Everyone's still following. That's why I need better terminology. But yeah, it's
and then
helping,
you've got your
the 2s
ones,
help the 3s. Yeah.
which would be the people we think are absolute gurus, untouchable, enlightened, that they just look like they've got their entire like shit together. And we go, that's unattainable. I just can't do that. You know, here I'm sitting back here with all these nasty habits and vices that I can't get rid of, but down here at level, that's the second 3. So yeah, you can use that for anything in your life. I think it's a really good analogy. And I love the fact that those 4s are not worth your time and energy. A lot of people get stuck with that. They try and change people that don't want to change, aren't ready for change. They're quite happy with their negative lot in life. I shouldn't say happy. They're resigned to it. And so we just let them be. And eventually there's a really beautiful metronome analogy. So do you know what a metronome is? So a metronome is what measures the beat. And you can Google this. There's so many videos of this. So if you put a group of metronomes on a slightly movable base, and you start them all off at different times, eventually they all get in sync. Even the last resistant, number 4 person who doesn't want to change, eventually will be taken over by the energy of the collective. So we don't have to worry about giving our energy to those 4s. We work on ourselves, the 3s and the 2s and the 1s, and that becomes a group of metronomes that eventually the 4s they'll get into sync with it. It'll happen. But
that's right. You've got to believe in it.
Yeah, there's a bit of science behind it. So
that's
we're just going to make that happen. So thank you so much for your time. It's an absolute pleasure. So if people want to reach out to you, you have mentioned reunion.earth, but what other ways, if people want to grab your app or hook up for you for some alcohol coaching, whatever it might be, best way to reach you would be?
Just email me directly. I'll gladly reply to everything eventually. But if you put in the title Referral Georgia podcast or something, that'll bump it up to the top. But Benny at 101tokens.com. More information you can check out bennywallington.com.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and all the wonderful things that you're doing. And I'm going to encourage people to pay attention and follow this person. I think there's amazing things not only happening now, but unfolding in the future with the energy and the knowledge that Benny has. So thank you so much, Benny.
Thank you. It's been a rad conversation. Frothy
conversation. That's how we like to start the day, right?
Yeah.
Today is turning into the most curious adventure I've ever had.